Welcome to the Wolffpack Fitness Podcast with your host, Adrian Wolff. I'm a PhD student in interdisciplinary health sciences with a master's degree in kinesiology and a bachelor's degree in psychology. I've been a fitness coach for over 10 years and I've trained everyone from everyday gym goers to kids to Division I collegiate and professional athletes. My mission is to provide you with actionable knowledge in the areas of fitness, nutrition, stress management, and psychology to help you live your best life every day. Let's get to the show. What's going on, Wolffpack? Welcome back to another episode of the Wolffpack Fitness Podcast with me, your host, Adrian Wolff. So I want to start off this episode by sharing some of the completely free resources I have available to you on my website. And that website is www.wolffpackfitness.com. So as always, I link it in the show notes so you guys can click on it easily and go check out all the free resources that I have. And I also have a YouTube channel, if you didn't know, that is at Wolffpack Fitness. And both of those are with 2 F's. So if you go to the website, under the free programs tab, you will find a bunch of free ebooks that I wrote. They're completely free, and you can download them as a PDF file. And there is something for everyone, and a few of my favorites that people have found most useful are the guides at the bottom. So I have a travel guide, which provides you with strategies to maintain your health and fitness on the road or in the air if you're flying a lot. A self-myofascial release guide for helping you improve your flexibility and relieve tight and painful muscles and achy joints. A stress management guide to help you recover from your workouts faster and reduce everyday stress. And a nutrition guide for helping you build better habits and choose foods that are ideal for your health and fitness goals. So go check those out and start putting some of that stuff to use. My YouTube channel also contains almost 700 videos, including short exercise demos and longer exercise technique tutorials. So you should be able to find anything you're looking for regarding exercise technique for body weight and resistance training exercises, and also stretching and mobility exercises. If you can't, be sure to leave me a comment so I can make a specific video for you. The links to my website and YouTube channel are included in the show notes, so be sure to check them out. Okay, so today's podcast episode is on the fascinating yet very, very frustrating topic of how to get yourself to stop craving foods that take you further from your health and fitness goals. So the foods I'm talking about here are ultra-processed foods like chips, pastries, ice cream, frozen packaged foods, or any foods fried in seed or vegetable oils like French fries, or anything breaded you might find at a bar or a restaurant. And this is just to name a few. So in general, most foods you would find at a grocery store with a long shelf life in just about every fast food grab-and-go establishment. All right, so those are types of foods I'm talking about and where you can find those types of foods. So most of us know that these foods are not ideal for us to eat, but why is that so? These foods are what many fitness professionals refer to as calorie-dense or nutrient-depleted foods. This means that they are packed with calories but have extremely minimal amounts of nutrient value. This happens when a food, like whole grains, is processed and broken down so much that any nutrients they once contained in their whole, unaltered form are lost, and therefore not absorbed by the body. An example of this is taking whole grain bread and processing it down so much that they create white bread. However, what is still absorbed by the body is the energy or the calories that are contained in the food, as well as any added ingredients that are typically unwanted, like preservatives and added sugars. These are added to enhance flavor and extend the food's shelf life, but the end result is typically weight gain and a host of other negative consequences like gastrointestinal issues, inflammation, blood sugar spikes and crashes, and lethargy. The enhanced flavor and chemical engineering involved in making certain foods like chips and desserts taste extremely good are also important factors in what makes them hyper-palatable. So hyper-palatability simply means that it is extremely difficult to only eat just a little bit of these foods because the flavor of whole, natural foods simply does not compare. Scientists who work for these companies have figured out ideal combinations of salt, sugar, fat, and other additives that make these foods simply irresistible. I recently read an article published in 2022 in the journal Reviews in Endocrine and Metabolic Disorders. In this article, the researchers cited 181 scientific studies related to ultra-processed foods and their effects on the gut, brain, and cravings associated with these foods. Some of the information they found was pretty shocking. Some of the most important factors of ultra-processed foods that make us crave them so much are their organoleptic characteristics, which is a scientific term for their taste and texture. So digestion begins in the mouth, where the taste and texture of food gives you a sensory input that is communicated to your brain. Your brain then processes this information and you identify the food as sweet, salty, sour, bitter, or savory. The texture also influences how long the food is in your mouth and how long you chew it for, which directly impacts how long it takes for you to receive the signal from your mouth and stomach that you are full. Ultra-processed foods are designed to be softer, which makes you chew them less and allows them to move from your mouth down to your stomach faster. The decreased time of this food in the mouth leads to lower satiety signals going to your brain, which then contributes to higher appetite and overeating. In fact, one of the studies they reviewed showed that participants who ate softer versions of hamburger or rice meals actually ate 13% more food than participants who ate harder versions of those meals. Pretty crazy, but it gets more wild than that. Remember that the taste of ultra-processed food affects your appetite as well. Since these foods are rich in saturated fat, added sugar, and salt, if you eat more of these foods, you will crave them more. The researchers in this review found that this is due to the ultra-processed food's ability to actually chemically reshape your gustatory system. So your gustatory system is basically just your sense of taste. And that happens through a mechanism known as the chemosensory plasticity. So scientists normally address plasticity in reference to the brain's ability to change with the various experiences. But changes in your appetite and preference toward ultra-processed foods can actually take place within your mouth and sense of taste as well. This puts you and me at an extreme disadvantage when it comes to maintaining a healthy body composition and proper functioning throughout the day. Just by living in the 21st century, we are all at a serious disadvantage as these foods are constantly surrounding us. Think of the donuts your boss or coworkers bring in for special occasions that you feel obligated to eat, or the never-ending line of fast food chains on every single block in your local neighborhood, or the online and TV ads that constantly attempt to create a subconscious pairing of foods like fried chicken wings and pizza with popular sporting events in your mind every time you're exposed to them. Society is literally designed to promote weight gain, body fat gain, and deterioration of health for the sake of convenience and enjoyment of life's simple pleasures. Now, is this intentional? I like to believe that it's not. After all, living in the United States has always been about the American dream and being successful. Big food companies found ways long ago to be successful by minimizing costs and maximizing profits by creating cheap, shelf-stable foods. Did they know in the beginning that these foods would ultimately be important contributors to weight gain, obesity, and chronic diseases? I continue to have faith in humanity and believe that the long-term repercussions we're seeing now were largely unknown in the 20th century when all this was taking place. It took decades for us to get to this point, and things will not change overnight. However, in recent years, I have started noticing positive changes being made. Many sit-down restaurants and fast food joints do have more health-promoting options available now, since it seems that more people are in fact becoming more health conscious. This gives me more hope, but the fact remains that hyper-palatable, ultra-processed foods aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And let's be honest, they probably won't ever go away for good. They will always be around, and we will always have to contend with them. So, how do we stop craving them so much? The answer to this question begins with having an understanding of the 3 macronutrients and how they affect the body. So, what are the 3 macronutrients and what do they have to do with unhealthy food cravings? The 3 macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and how much of each of them you eat has an effect on cravings and, most importantly, your body's natural satiety signals. Satiety simply means how full your body feels and how satisfied you feel after you eat food. The proportions or relative percentages and amounts of macronutrients you eat dictates how full you feel and for how long you feel full. Eating all of these foods in their whole form will ensure that your satiety signals are functioning optimally and you're not overeating. So, what does eating whole carbs, proteins, and fats look like? Let's start with carbs. The most ideal carbohydrate sources come from whole foods like fruits and vegetables. Some examples of fruits include bananas, apples, oranges, pineapples, cantaloupe, melons, and different types of berries. Some examples of vegetables include potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, different types of squash like yellow, acorn, and butternut, parsnips, beets, and legumes like beans and lentils. So I absolutely love a good lentil soup. If you have an Instapot or slow cooker, look up a recipe for lentil soup. I promise you're not going to be disappointed. Another source of carbohydrates is from whole grains, like brown rice, wild rice, quinoa, oats, and farro. When you eat these carbs in their whole form, they retain their fiber, which makes them take longer to digest and helps you feel fuller for longer, which will help you reduce your cravings for other ultra-processed foods. If you have processed carbohydrates like white rice, white bread, or traditional pasta, most or all of the fiber has been removed through the preparation of these foods, which makes them travel through your mouth and digestive organs faster, allowing you to eat more of them prior to receiving your satiety signal. Next are fats. Fats in general have been vilified for far too long, but this is not a podcast episode about debunking the fat makes you fat myth. I just want to give you information about which fats are the most ideal for you to eat if you want to promote your health and reduce your cravings for ultra-processed foods. The most ideal fat sources come from foods like avocados, grass-fed butter, ghee, certain oils like avocado oil, coconut oil, and olive oil, nuts like almonds, cashews, walnuts, macadamia nuts, and Brazil nuts, seeds like flax, chia, hemp, and pumpkin seeds, and the fats you get from fish, pasture-raised grass-fed animal sources, and egg yolks. There are different types of fat, like saturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and trans fats. Which type of fat you eat depends on the food sources that they're most prevalent in. You should always strive to avoid trans fats that you typically find in ultra-processed foods like pastries and chips. These have been shown by scientific research to have detrimental effects on the body, and consuming foods with these fats will not help your cravings. They will reinforce your cravings. If you eat the other 3 fats from a variety of whole foods I previously mentioned, you will feel your I'm full signal sooner and you will stay fuller longer because these fats take longer to digest than carbohydrates and protein. Speaking of protein, this is probably the most important macronutrient I want to talk about in this episode, specifically because of the debate between which protein sources are the best to eat, and that many people may not know how protein is involved in your body's satiety signals and cravings. So the most ideal protein sources come from minimally processed pasture-raised meats like chicken, turkey, beef, pork, and wild game like venison, elk, and bison. If you want to get really wild, you can also try organ meats like liver. Other protein sources are pasture-raised whole eggs and wild-caught cold water fish like salmon, mackerel, cod, and sardines. Please note that all these protein sources are not the same as what you would get from your typical fast food joint. Meats from these establishments are typically highly processed and come from animals exposed to poor living conditions and fed a poor diet. Remember that these establishments seek to maximize profit at the expense of your health, and the health of the animal you eat directly impacts your health. Your body assimilates the proteins and fats of the animal you eat into its own muscle and fat tissues. And if the chemical makeup of these proteins and fats is not ideal, it will have a negative impact on your health. You can also get protein from whole vegetable sources like legumes, but these tend to be what are called incomplete proteins, which means that they lack at least one essential amino acid necessary for the maintenance of your body's tissues and proper functioning of the body and brain. But you can still obtain all essential amino acids with the right combination of legumes, nuts, and grains, especially if you're vegetarian or vegan. However, this takes additional research and planning and often comes with excess consumption of carbohydrates and fats due to the macronutrient profile of those foods. So I typically recommend choosing proteins from meat as previously mentioned. Now, if you choose not to eat your proteins from meat due to moral reasons, that's a topic for a future podcast episode. For now, just know that all of the previously mentioned foods are healthy options to get adequate protein intake. Regardless of how you're getting it, make sure you're eating enough protein is one of the most important strategies for keeping your cravings for other foods at bay. In fact, research has shown that protein consumption is the most satiating macronutrient, more so than carbohydrates and fats. To elaborate on that point, making sure you have at least one serving of protein with your meals will ensure that you feel comfortably full during your meal and for several hours after your meal. In fact, protein intake decreases levels of a hormone known as ghrelin, also known as the hunger hormone, after your meal, and they tend to stay lower for a longer period of time compared to eating meals with less protein. A couple other hormones that contribute to satiety are cholecystokinin, or CCK, and glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1, which are also influenced by protein intake. All this means less cravings and snacking on junk food between meals if you make sure you're eating enough protein with your meals. Okay, so now that you know a lot more about how these three macronutrients positively impact your food cravings, if you're getting them from ideal sources, of course, I want to share some tips with you on how you can use this information to start managing your cravings for unhealthy foods, eat less of them, and ultimately promote your health. First, don't keep them in the house. Not having ultra-processed foods in your house is one of the best ways to keep yourself from craving them because you won't see them, unless you watch live TV, of course, but this makes life so much easier. If you live alone and don't have any kids, this will definitely be easier. However, if you're married and starting to become health conscious while your spouse isn't ready, this can be a problem. This can be a good opportunity to work on your communication skills and sync up on what's most important to your family. I would also recommend the book Crucial Conversations by Joseph Grenny to help with this. I'll include a link in the show notes. But simply put, the less you see these foods, the less you're exposed to them, the less you'll crave them. Keeping them out of your house forces you to go out and get them if you really want them, which creates a nice obstacle for you. Next, reframe your relationship with these foods. Let's be honest. Most of us are not going to go through our lives without having a cookie or ice cream, unless you want to live life in isolation in the mountains somewhere. So, what do you do about this? Save these foods for the most meaningful experiences in your life, like your kid's birthday party, or a special evening out with friends, or your next anniversary with your spouse. These experiences are what create a healthier relationship with these foods. You're not beating yourself up for having a cheat meal. You are accepting the short-term consequences of eating the food, like a stomach ache or a rough trip to the bathroom the following day. And you're doing this in order to fully enjoy the experience with those people that are most important to you. If you save these foods for those times, you will enjoy them more, and you will also reduce your cravings by not eating them as much. Next, make fast food joints disappear. What do I mean by this? Didn't I just say these foods will never go away? I sure did. So, what I mean by this is that I want you to start changing your routine little by little. If there's a specific fast food joint you go to on a regular basis, you now go to that joint once a week rather than every day. Or you swap out the McDonald's for a sandwich place like Jimmy John's or Subway. McDonald's no longer exists on your mental map. You pass by it without even noticing it's there. Or you cut out grab-and-go fast food places altogether and only go to sit-down restaurants, if that's in your budget, of course. But sit-down restaurants generally use better ingredients and have more healthy options to choose from. I don't even remember when I started doing this because these kinds of places haven't existed to me in so long. I'm talking about fast food places. If they don't exist in your mind, you will carry on with your life without even noticing. Next is chewing your food and eating slowly. This is actually a habit I tend to struggle with a lot. We're all generally pretty busy and have limited time to really sit down for a bit and eat slowly. But any chance you get, I want you to focus on the details of your food when you're eating. Really sink in to your sense of taste and enjoy the food rather than being distracted by something else. Focus on chewing it until it is just about in liquid form. That will ensure that you're eating slowly and you receive your satiety signal without overeating. It will also help your body assimilate the nutrients from the food more effectively and will be less stressful on your digestive system. Last but not least, have balanced meals that include carbohydrates, fats, and most importantly, protein. Include all three macronutrients, and this will ensure that your body is receiving the nourishment that it needs to function at its best. Including all three macronutrients is also important to maintain a balanced release of hormones that regulate your appetite. As a general rule of thumb, start by eating your protein first, then move on to the veggies, carbs, and fats. I actually like to eat my veggies along with the protein because the protein helps make the veggies a bit more palatable, so you could give this a try as well. So this leads me to your action item for this week. There are 2 goals for you to strive for. First, I want you to make sure half of your plate is filled with vegetables for at least 1 meal out of every day. Steaming up a few veggies that you like or making a stir fry is a simple way to make veggies in bulk so that you have them ready for the week. Veggies have tons of fiber that will help keep you satisfied and comfortably full for a while. They are also a very healthy source of carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. Your second goal is to make sure you have a serving of complete protein at each meal every single day. If you're a plant-based eater, make sure you're consuming 2 or 3 different types of protein sources at each meal to make it more likely that you're getting all your essential amino acids. So that's it. Get more veggies on your plate, make sure you have a source of protein, and observe what happens to your food cravings. I'll bet that you will be satisfied and full until your next meal, and you won't crave ultra-processed foods as much the more you do this. Those are your 2 goals to complete at a bare minimum, but don't forget about including fat either. Try to have some avocado or some nuts on the side, or drizzle some olive oil on your food as well. One final note: stress and sleep deprivation have a huge impact on food cravings as well, but I'll cover those in a future episode. For now, if you still feel cravings for some junk food, even if you feel satisfied and full, ask yourself these 3 questions. Am I stressed? Or am I bored? Or am I thirsty? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you're not really hungry. You're just looking for a coping mechanism to relieve your stress or boredom, or you're simply just thirsty. Take 10 deep breaths, find something else to do, or drink 8 to 12 ounces of water, and your cravings will subside. All right, guys, that's all for today. If you're liking the content, please leave me a review. I would also love for you to leave me a comment about any additional topics you'd like to learn about. Once again, this can be in the areas of fitness, nutrition, stress management, or psychology. Thanks for listening. Go get your action item done and tune in for the next episode. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you like the content, be sure to follow my podcast, leave a review, and check out the show notes for additional details and links discussed in this episode. My mission is to provide you with actionable knowledge in the areas of fitness, nutrition, stress management, and psychology. It is often said that knowledge is power, but I like to say that knowledge applied is even more powerful. Take what you learned today and find a way to apply it to your lifestyle so you can continue living your best life. Thanks, and be sure to activate the new episode notifications to be the first to learn about new and exciting content. See you next time.